Turcaholics, Kaan Bayazit here for Football a la Turca. A quick bonus episode here to tie you over for the week until we get back into the Turkish Super League. I don't have any co-hosts with me tonight. We're just going to be briefly talking about the European qualification campaign because, of course, as you probably know by now, Turkey have qualified for Euro 2020. The second consecutive European Championship that Turkey qualifies for now. Of course, they were last in action in 2016 and didn't get out of the group stages there. But this Turkey team does look interesting. Obviously, we still have to wait and see what the qualification campaign, what the group will look like that Turkey will be in. But let's quickly look at the qualification campaign itself. Turkey end in second place in their group behind France because Turkey were unable to beat Iceland on the 1-2 last match. That match ended 0-0, obviously. That was the big match that mattered. And after that match, Turkey had secured qualification. So the final match in the group stages against Andorra in Andorra didn't matter anymore. Turkey played B team. Many of the old guard were rested, were already allowed to go home. Thinking Emre Belözoğlu, Burak Yilmaz. Those guys were allowed to return to their clubs early. Burak had played the full 90 minutes, if I'm not mistaken, against Iceland. And you'll have to forgive me a little bit if I'm a little hazy on the facts there. I was unfortunately ill over the week, and the Turkey-Iceland match, I didn't really watch it. It was on my cell phone while I was laying feverish in bed. So I was listening to it while ailing, and at times where I thought it sounded like something exciting was going on, I grabbed my phone and I watched a little bit, but it was I didn't manage to fully experience it, and you'd think that it'll take away a little bit of the nerves, but as the ending of the match came closer, I found myself heating up, so like getting like sweats and stuff just from the nerves, really, of just one ball has to fall in the wrong place or for Iceland in the right place, and that almost happened, of course, but that ball got cleared off the line. I don't remember if it was Çağlar or Meri who managed to clear that off the line, but I did have the impression from what my ears told me that Turkey did have a decent amount of chances that were denied in that match, but at the end of the day, of course, it didn't really matter. I don't think that ending first or second makes a difference for Turkey. Turkey will be in pot 3 when it comes to the draws for the group stages of the tournament. Ultimately, I don't think that would have changed because that's based on coefficient ranking, and I really don't think that beating Iceland would have made a difference in that regard. But if it would, and I'm wrong here, then please do correct me and let me know. I'm just trying to look at the pots here, so let's quickly have a look at our potential opponents. So Turkey will be in pot 3, but in pot 1 we have Italy, Belgium, England, Germany, and Ukraine and Spain. So Turkey will meet one of those teams at the Euros for sure. So once again, Italy, Belgium, England, Germany, Ukraine, and Spain. I think the teams that we'd probably like to avoid here would be Belgium, England, and maybe Spain. I think the situations with Italy, Germany, Germany are in a transitional period where they're in between generations a little bit. They really have been ever since winning the World Cup. So always a tough opponent, but I think right now Belgium and England are the most informed teams from this pot 1, so those are the teams you probably want to avoid most. Then from pot 2, our potential opponents could be the Netherlands, France, who of course we already met in the group stages, Croatia, Switzerland, Poland, and Russia. So some interesting matchups there. Croatia, a team we've met in past couple of years. Czech Republic are not in here, sorry. Switzerland, of course. An old enemy of ours, really. Poland, Russia. Not the most attractive opponents in that regard. I think Holland or the Netherlands is an interesting opponent. Good young team, of course, that have a couple of still puzzle pieces that need to fall in place, but they have a very exciting generation. And obviously we are in pot 3 alongside Portugal, Denmark, Austria, Sweden, and the Czech Republic. I'm reading this from a Turkish graphic, so I have to translate it in my head. So yeah, we can't meet those teams. That's good. Some good sides in there that we will definitely avoid. And then from what we already know, pot 4 consists out of Finland and Wales, and the other remaining 4 teams will still have to play playoffs. So we'll have to wait and see who come out there, and once we get closer to the draw, once the draw takes place, we will definitely talk about that more. But yeah, it's a very successful qualification campaign. On paper, I think the most comfortable campaign Turkey have had probably in history. I don't remember ever qualifying with less of an effort, or how should I put it, less discomfort or whatever. I think we've always gone through playoffs in the past, as far as I can recall. But at the end of the day, had that ball fallen in towards the end of the match against Iceland, it could have been different. We could have been shaky in that last match, but we still, I think, would have gone through, as our B team did very well and beat Andorra 2-0. Both those goals coming from Enes Unal, by the way. One from the penalty spot, and another one was a little bit of a rebound, I believe. But Turkey, therefore, ending with 2 points less than France, who end in first position with 25 points, and Turkey end in second with 23 points. And then we have Iceland, who end in third with 19 points, and then quite a bit behind that, Albania. They ended with 13 points. So, yeah, interesting. Good campaign, great return to the national team for Şenol Güneş. He has restored faith in the national team. That's something I think that was lacking for many years. Just that excitement around the national team. Even when we qualified for Euro 2016 and when we played at Euro 2016, I think there was a lot of negativity surrounding the national team, or surrounding that generation, and in particular Arda Turan, who was kind of the face of that team, but in a very negative way, where I think Arda's move to Barcelona had really gone to his head. He thought probably that he was the biggest thing since the wheel, the best invention since the wheel, or I mean, yeah, Arda was really full of himself, disappointed, was a leader in his own mind, but never really led that team. And there was just so much negativity around Arda. There was a lot of negativity around Fatih Terim, I think, just around the team in general. The fans also turned against that team. That was also not so long after, of course, the whole issue with fans in Istanbul booing players from opposition teams. I think Galatasaray fans, when Turkey played at the Türk Telekom Arena one time, before the match, Volkan Demirel got into it with some fans and left the stadium, if you recall that. So that was the kind of stuff that right now we really can't fathom anymore with this national team, where there just seems to be so much positivity around this team. And I think one of the main reasons for that is, there isn't really that divide anymore that we used to have in the past of Galatasaray players, Beşiktaş players, Fenerbahçe players. I think it's definitely an advantage that the important players, the key guys, they don't play in Turkey anymore. If we look at what really has been the success to this team in terms of on the pitch, I think one of the big successes of this team has been Merih Demiral, Çağlar Soyuncu, Kaan Ayhan. And we now speak about this tandem that got formed between Merih and Çağlar, but we have to remember, before Çağlar was playing regularly for Leicester this season, So when the campaign started last year, at the second half of last season, I believe, Çağlar really wasn't being featured. So that wasn't really there from the get-go. But right now, I think we really see an incredible tandem between Çağlar Soyuncu and Merih Demiral, who's been in my opinion at least, the undisputed leader of this team, the stone wall at the back. Merih has been the one constant for this team, alongside Mert Günok, who definitely deserves some praise. He's been a very serviceable, reliable goalkeeper. That's what he's kind of doing at Başakşehir too. I wouldn't say he's the most impressive goalkeeper I've ever seen, but he's good. He's very good. He's reliable. He doesn't do stupid, silly mistakes like we're kind of used to from Turkish goalkeepers. And I think when we look at, for example, an Uğurcan from Trabzonspor, I think you have a more talented goalkeeper there, a younger, more talented goalkeeper, but a goalkeeper that's prone to doing some typical Turkish stupid stuff, like fumbling a high ball and yeah, making mistakes that cost you a goal. And I think at this level, at the national team level, where Turkey don't really have any surplus in terms of quality with most of their opponents, you can't afford to make mistakes like that. So I think it's the right decision that Şenol Güneş makes there by banking on the experience and reliability of Mert Günok right now. I definitely think that Uğurcan in the future will be one of the candidates alongside Altay Bayındır, but Altay has that same quality in terms of raw talent, but has also that proneness to doing some questionable things. So yeah, right now Mert, I think, is the only right decision. I don't think anyone with a straight face can deny that. He deserves a spot at the moment, but Altay and Uğurcan, of course, guys to watch for the future. It's going to be interesting to see which of those two will end up being the bigger and more successful goalkeeper. But yeah, the big success of this team, of course, that defensive tandem, Merih, Çağlar, in the second half of the qualification campaign. Before that, Merih, Kaan Ayhan. And with Kaan Ayhan, we really have a fantastic utility player, I think, that can play both as a central defender, a right back. I bet he could play as a left back in a pinch. He can play in midfield in a pinch. It's a fantastic squad depth player and also a very good quality player. Only in his mid-20s, 25 years old. And if we look at Merih, he's only 22, of course, and then Çağlar Soyuncu, I believe he's only 22 too. So if we look at the future of this national team, Çağlar is 23, but we are really at the cusp here of a new generation of players. And we're going to be able to enjoy this team for many years to come. Hopefully Merih gets more playing time at Juventus or moves to another club, because I think right now Merih is an absolute beast and should be playing week in, week out. He's only 22, but he is playing like a 27, 28-year-old experienced defender that's been through many battles, that's won stuff, important stuff, that's played in big games. It's really phenomenal how he is performing right now. I hope he's able to keep that up. He's been consistently performing at a very high level for two seasons or so. Well, 1.5 years. Last season, first half at Alanyaspor, and the second half at Sassuolo, and now this half season. So we'll have to wait and see if Merih can keep that up, but what he is showing right now is absolutely phenomenal, and it really remembers me a lot of Alpay. And right now, I don't think we can say he's better than Alpay yet, because Alpay, of course, had a fantastic career, first in Turkey, then some really good years in the Premier League before that whole thing with David Beckham went down, and his career kind of went downhill from there. But I think Merih is definitely that successor to Alpay, and the first real successor to Alpay, and then maybe you could call Çağlar the successor to Bülent Korkmaz, or to our best central defense in history. I would argue Alpay, Bülent. Emre Aşık was pretty good too, but that was a fantastic tandem. But I think this is better. Merih, Çağlar, more footballing ability in between them. They're both physically very good. Things are looking bright. So then we have to look towards those back positions. I think Hassan Ali Kaldırım for now is the logical choice, you'd think, but Umut Meraş has had a really good qualification campaign, and of course, because of Hassan Ali's injury, was played more than you'd expect. I'm not a huge fan of Umut because I think offensively he doesn't really contribute a lot. But then again, I mean, Hassan Ali's strength has never been the offensive contribution, and both of them defensively are stable. I think Umut played a good game against France. Of course, the first match against France, Hassan Ali was impressive against Mbappe. I don't really recall Umut playing a bad game this qualification campaign. I think always defensively he's been okay, reliable. I don't remember him impressing me in particular, but I also don't remember him standing out as a weak link or anything like that. At least not defensively. I think offensively he has a lot to improve on, but yeah, I think Umut's pretty young too. He's like 24, 25. So we have Kaan Bayazit at 25. We have Umut, who's right now, it looks like it's going to be he's 23 actually. He's going to be our left back for the foreseeable future until somebody better comes along. I don't think Umut is necessarily one of those guys like a Chala, like a Meri, who's going to be our player in that position for the next 8 years or so. I don't think that's the case, but it all depends on who else comes along. And how Hassan Ali does, of course, because Hassan Ali is already 29. He's going on 30 years old, so he's not going to be around for many more years. We, of course, have Mert Mulder, but he's a right back, so he's an up-and-coming young kid that we'll have to keep an eye on. And then, of course, you have Zeki Çelik, the undisputed right back right now, doing fantastic at Lille alongside Yusuf Yazıcı. And let's move over and take a look at our midfield. I think that's where we have some room for improvement. Irfan Can is somebody that's really impressed a lot of people during this qualification campaign. He's only in his mid to early 20s. Okay Yokuşlu missed some games, of course, due to injury, but he's been doing great in Spain. So he's definitely a guy that will be able to look for and bank on for the coming years. He's only 25. Ozan Tufan, with his resurgence, his re-arrival on the scene, he's been really solid for Fenerbahce this season. He's been solid for the national team, only 24 years old. Efe Can Karaca is not somebody I think that will play a big role. Emre Belözoğlu's role is going to inevitably wind down as he's already 39 years old. Hakan Çalhanoğlu, everyone knows I'm not a big fan of his. He plays every match. I really think that Yusuf Yazıcı is a superior talent. Not just a superior talent, also just a superior player, period. I think when Yusuf comes on the pitch, you immediately see and feel the difference in a positive way. Hakan is very flaky. Like, he has his matches. I thought when he came on against France in the second half, he did really well. And then he had like a really good game against Albania early on in the campaign. But apart from that, I really thought that he's like, I don't really remember him making a good impression on me in any other match, if I'm quite honest. And I'm maybe a little hypercritical of him, but I'm just not a fan. And then, of course, we have guys like Emre Kılınç, who barely played. I don't think that Emre Kılınç will be playing that much of a role. But it all depends. I mean, he's at the end of his contract at Sivasspor. He's having a great season again with Sivasspor. He's in his last 6 months. Galatasaray, Beşiktaş, Fenerbahçe are undoubtedly going to come knocking, especially as there's definitely going to be something in terms of a change to the foreigner limit. I hope we're not going back to the old format, but I could see us going to something like an 8 on the pitch max or something like that, and I think then a guy like Emre Kılınç becomes a lot more valuable. And I think if Emre starts playing for, let's say, Galatasaray, and he starts actually performing, or not starts but continues to perform and continues to replicate that format at Sivasspor and does well. I mean, even at Sivasspor, I think right now he does really well, but I don't think he's not an Edin Visca. He's not what Edin Visca is at Başakşehir. He's not what Atif Şeşu was at Sivasspor back in the day when he was there. And really doing fantastic. But he's a really solid hand there. And I think if he can be a solid hand at a big club, I think then his role at the national team could change. Because, let's face it, that's the position where we struggle most. That's those winger positions. We have, of course, probably the best winger of that Turkey have maybe ever had in Cengiz Ünder. And then maybe I'm selling guys like Hasan Sash a little short there, but I think Cengiz Ünder, when it comes to what he's already achieved in his career at Roma, with the status that he's already achieved there, I think you could definitely make that argument. And he's fantastic. But we have absolutely no options on that other wing. We have nothing on the left wing. Whether you want to play Cengiz on the left or the right, the opposite wing is always going to be an issue. We don't have anything there right now except for Emre Kilic and Dennis. We have Dennis Turkic, of course, but I mean those are not they're not up to that same level. Nowhere close. And both of those guys. I mean Dennis. I like Dennis. I've always liked Dennis when he was at Kayserispor. I think he's a fine player. He's not getting a lot of minutes for Fenerbahce right now, so I think that also works against him. But I just think that Dennis doesn't have that speed that you want from a winger in the type of football that Şenol Güneş wants to play probably with the national team, because I think we are going to be a more reactionary team because we have a fantastic defense, but we don't have the best offense. And I think we're going to try and try and hit teams on the counter when possible with the speed that the Cengiz has, for example, because playmaking wise, chance creation wise, I felt like during the qualification campaign that was our biggest issue. So those wingers are really something we're going to have to work on, or hope that something comes out of the bus. Maybe Abdülkadir Ömür can be slotted there. I really like Abdülkadir as a 10 when he plays for Trabzonspor. I really thought that at the beginning of the season, now that Yusuf is gone and that spot kind of opened up and he was playing more of a 10 role, I really liked how he was playing there. But of course, he plays a lot on the wing too, and he's very good there. So hopefully when he comes back from his injury, he becomes an option. Hopefully Emre Kilic goes on and then moves to a bigger club and can continue improving himself. He's only 25 years old. He's not young. He's not super young, but he still has plenty of years in him where he can become a valuable asset for the national team, I believe. Mohamed Tekdemir, that's one of those guys that right now is a very serviceable player for the national team. On the long run, we're going to have to look at other options there, but I think Okay Yokuşlu is definitely an option, although some argue that his best position isn't necessarily the 6, and he is a great 8, so we'll have to see. Yusuf Yazıcı at 22 for me needs to be the leader in midfield going forward in the coming years. I really hope that Şenol Güneş makes his role more important at the Euros. Maybe, I could see Şenol Güneş letting Hakan Çalhanoğlu have his last go at that role, but to me, Hakan's never going to fulfill that role. I just don't see him as that next leader in midfield that takes the offensive responsibility and leads the team going forward. I think that whoever is going to take that role needs to work well in tandem with Cengiz. I think Yusuf is the man to do so. Maybe Abdülkadir Ömür. I really don't see from those 3 options, Yusuf, Abdülkadir, and Hakan. For me, Hakan is the black sheep, and I really don't see him getting that role. But I kind of fear that Şenol is going to hold on to him for probably a little bit too long, like he did with Quaresma at Beşiktaş. But I really hope I'm wrong there. And then alongside that second winger position, our biggest issue, of course, is up front with the strikers, with Burak Yilmaz being 34 years old, injury prone. This qualification campaign, he had some really great performances. He was, again, I'm told, great against Iceland, because, again, I really didn't manage to watch much. But Umut was gushing about his performance against Iceland, and kind of the way he was talking about it reminded me of how he played against France in the first game, where against France, he just basically, both Varane and Umtiti, just had them both kept them busy for 90 plus minutes. Two guys who were like 10 years his junior, just kept them both busy and drove them crazy and gave them such a tough time. And of course, yeah, it's a position against Iceland's less impressive, but still. But yeah, Burak, 34 years old, going on 35. We need a solution there soon. Cenk Tosun not getting a lot of playing time at Everton, so he needs to move away from Everton, and then he could be that option. I mean, Cenk is still only like 28, I think. So I'm just thinking he's from 1991, so I think he's 28. So yeah, Cenk, but then we have a couple of young upcomings like Kutucu and stuff. We have, of course, Enes Unal, but Enes, yeah, he's only 22 years old. He should be part of this golden generation, really, or silver generation, or however you'd like to call it. But he barely got a chance from Şenol Güneş in the qualification campaign. Of course, he did manage to play against. He did get to start against Andorra, score twice. So I hope that makes Şenol give him more of a look, more of a chance. But so far, I haven't had the impression that Şenol has a lot of faith in Enes. So yeah. We have an exciting young team. Lots of guys in their mid to early 20s. 22 to 25. There's a lot of guys around that age. It's a really exciting generation. I think there's a skeleton of a team that's we're going to be able to enjoy for many years to come. But of course, we really desperately need that alternative, that second winger. We need a striker, a marquee striker, and unfortunately for a national team, you can't just go out and buy one. But we need someone like a Vedat Muric, for example, a guy like that who can really alleviate pressure for the team, work hard, score goals. That's the type of striker I feel like we need. We need a modern Hakan Şükür. And right now I don't really see one, and I think that's been Turkey's main issue for many years, just producing strikers. Turkey does not seem to have a knack for that, for producing good strikers. Even when we have strikers that are like, who score decent amount of goals for bigger teams in the domestic competition, like a Necati Ateş, like Umut Karan, Fatih Tekke, İlhan Mansız, those Semi Şentürk, those types of strikers. I also think that one of the big issues that we always have with those guys is they're always kind of small. They're always like 177, 182, 184 maybe. That's the thing with Cenk too. I think Cenk, if he had like 5 or so more centimeters in height, I think he'd be a lot more successful, because that really does matter. He's like 182, 83. It's just a little bit too small in the modern game. When you come up against beasts like Umtiti and Varane, you need a little bit of extra physicality, a little bit of extra height, maybe some more muscle on your frame. And I just think that many of those players that I just mentioned just kind of lack that. So ever since Hakan Şükür, we only really have had Batuhan Karadeniz, who kind of fit that mold of a target striker that really had a good physique, or at least should have. But I think good physique and Batuhan Karadeniz doesn't really go hand in hand. But unfortunately, Batuhan wasn't a success because of insert random mental reasons. But that's the type of player we need, and at the moment I don't see any of those coming up through the ranks. So I think it's probably going to be a little bit of an unfortunate situation where we are heading into these, I think, next 8 years, I would say, with this generation. This is an 8-year generation potentially, or at least 6. That's 3-4 tournaments, potential tournaments that we could be qualifying for, with a Meri Demiral, with a Çağlar Söyüncü, with Altay or Uğurcan, with Zeki Çelik, with İrfan Can, and those guys, Cengiz, of course, Yusuf Yazıcı, Abdülkadir Ömür, such a talented squad, really, if you think about it. And I was asked the question the other day, do you think this team is better or as good? How do you think this team compares to? No, actually, the question I was asked is whether this is our golden generation, and I think it's really early to say whether it is. I think this definitely is a silver generation. I think this is our most talented generation since our previous golden generation of the 2000 era. Of course, in large part that team was based on that golden Galatasaray generation of the late 90s, early 2000s. Yeah, I definitely think that this is the most talented generation since, but I think we lack a couple of key components that we had back then. I think back then we had a pretty complete team. We had a really good goalkeeper, good defense, really good midfield, and a phenomenal striker. Up until I kind of felt like Hakan was kind of over the hill in 2002 at the World Cup already, and I think it's something that people remember it differently. I feel like because of Hakan's really quick goal against South Korea and him writing history in that regard. I think people kind of look back at his tournament with rose-colored glasses, but he was really poor at that tournament, if I'm quite honest, and there were better options at the time. And even the years after, I think Fatih Tekke was a better option, but never really got a fair chance, despite in the very few games he played, he scored. But yeah, I think that in that regard, I think that team in 2002, between 98 and 2002, I think that team had less gaps maybe, was more complete. But I do think that the ceiling on many of the guys from now, like a Cengiz, like a Meri, like a Çağlar, I think the ceiling on those guys is a lot higher than it was on Hasan Saich, than it was on Alpay, than it was on Bülent. And I think I know that's not just that's a tall statement, but I definitely believe that what we see from Meri right now is just so impressive. And yeah, I think we're gonna enjoy him for many years to come. So that's my reflection on the European qualification campaign, and hopefully in 2 years' time, when it's World Cup time, we'll be at that party too. And I hope in those 2 years that Yusuf Yazıcı is made more important. But I think that is going to be inevitable if he continues to rise and continues his trajectory at Lille right now. I don't think he'll still be at Lille in 2 years if he continues to grow as he's currently doing. So he'll hopefully be at an even bigger club then, and I hope surpass Hakan Çalhanoğlu in the pecking order. So quickly, of course, we'll be back next week, probably on Tuesday, as we will record on Monday, I imagine, for the next episode. Episode 12 for match day 12 in the Turkish Super League. Some very interesting matches coming up, of course, in the Super League. And I think the biggest one that I'm definitely intrigued by is the Başakşehir Galatasaray match. I do believe that is on the 12th match day. That match is being played on Friday, the 22nd of November. So that's a very interesting match. Galatasaray have some injury worries to deal with. Louis Ndama came back injured from the national team. Ryan Babel came back injured from the national team. Of course, Florin Andone got injured in that last match in the league for Galatasaray. And I also believe, Falcao is still going to be out for at least another 6 weeks. So Galatasaray really have an issue there in terms of a striker. Their two strikers are both injured. Then their alternative striker, Ryan Babel, is injured. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they're going to operate. Most likely Adem Büyük is, I think, their only real option left. And they're going to come up against an informed Başakşehir who have been performing well in recent weeks. Crivelli has been firing all cylinders, scoring goals left and right. Edin Visca is hitting his stride once again. So Galatasaray have a tough match up against Başakşehir on Friday. So that's going to be a very interesting one to watch. Of course, on Saturday, Beşiktaş and Trabzonspor are both away. Trabzonspor at Ankara Gücü, so that shouldn't be that big of a challenge, I think, for Trabzonspor. But Beşiktaş are away at Konyaspor. Konyaspor have been very hit and miss this season, but I still don't really know how to gauge Beşiktaş. So, and Konya away is always difficult for them, for anyone, I would imagine. But that's going to be an interesting match too. The other match remaining on Saturday is Denizlispor against Rizespor. That's definitely an interesting one in the relegation battle. Then on Sunday we have Kayserispor taking on Sivasspor, the league leaders. So you'd think that Sivasspor will just remain on top of the table after that one, but you never know. Kasımpaşa will take on Gençlerbirliği. That's another relatively interesting match in terms of the relegation battle, I'd say, although Kasımpaşa right now are safe, but things can change very quickly in this league with the current point totals of all the teams. Then we also have Alanyaspor taking on Göztepe and Yeni Malatyaspor taking on Fenerbahçe. So that's a very interesting match as well. And then finally on Monday we have Antalyaspor with Gaziantep. So yeah, I think Trabzonspor have the easiest match from those top contenders alongside Sivasspor. But Galatasaray have a really hard nut to crack with Başakşehir here. Malatyaspor away for Fenerbahçe is definitely a difficult task too, and Konya away for Beşiktaş is definitely a difficult task too. So on Monday we'll be recording. I hope our man of the law is back by that time. I know he's in San Francisco right now, I believe. Umut Jakub, of course, and then hopefully Özer will be back. And he was on TRT again this week, so yeah, probably a little late because that was on Monday again. But yeah, just shout out to Özer for doing a great job there. So we'll see you again next week, and thanks for listening to this monologue. And if you lasted this long, yeah, thanks a lot, and goodbye.